Private Elias Vance stood at the edge of the transport ship, staring into the dark water below, the hum of the engines cutting through the suffocating silence. The sea was calm, unnervingly calm, reflecting the crimson streaks of the approaching sunrise. Behind him, soldiers checked weapons, adjusted straps, murmuring only when necessary. The briefing had been clear. Carson Valley, a place where entire units vanished, where no trace of life remained. Sergeant Hale leaned against the railing, eyes scanning the horizon as if the sea itself might betray their path. First deployment? He asked. Elias nodded. Yeah. Hale's lips pressed into a thin line. Remember this. The first thing that dies out there isn't your body, it's your certainty. Elias frowned. What does that mean? Hale turned to look at him with a calm that unnerved him. You'll stop trusting what you see. That's when the valley starts winning. The helicopters arrived at dawn, rotors churning the air into dust and tension. Elias boarded with the squad, the weight of his gear pressing into his shoulders, grounding him in the reality of what they faced. Corporal Renner, sitting across, grinned despite the fear. You look like you're about to rethink your life choices. Elias smirked faintly. Just trying to understand why no one's talking. Hale's eyes flicked to him. Talking doesn't change what's coming. Awareness does. The valley appeared suddenly, cliffs rising sharply on either side, the dense jungle below twisting into shadows, mist curling through the trees, hiding depth, hiding movement. Elias felt it immediately, not fear but pressure, as if the world itself was aware of their presence. The air was thick, and each breath carried tension heavier than lead. They descended into the jungle, boots crunching against the undergrowth, rifles ready. Gunfire erupted from nowhere, striking the earth dangerously close, sparks and dirt flying in every direction. Renner fired blindly, yelling, "Where the hell are they?" Elias pressed against the fallen trunk, scanning desperately, but there was no visible enemy, only the jungle reacting, alive. Hale dropped beside him, calm and controlled. It's not attacking head-on, it's moving through us. Elias felt the words settle into his chest. They weren't fighting conventional soldiers. The valley itself was the enemy, every rustle, every flicker of shadow orchestrated with precision. Captain Solis' voice came through the comms, sharp and steady. All units hold position. Do not advance without visual confirmation. But formation had already dissolved. The ground itself seemed to shift, guiding footsteps, bending paths, forcing them toward corridors of the valley preselected by some unseen intelligence. A scream pierced the chaos as a soldier vanished into the foliage, dragged away by hands that didn't belong to anything human. Renner's laughter turned brittle with fear. It's learning, Hale muttered, and Elias understood instantly. The valley wasn't just terrain. It was alive, aware, sentient. Every broken branch, every reflection, every whisper of wind carried intention. Elias adjusted his grip on his rifle, focus sharpening, senses heightened. The unseen watched, calculated, and waited. They weren't in the valley. The valley was inside them, observing, testing, shaping. Captain Solis signaled forward, their only choice being to continue, to survive long enough to understand the rules of this living labyrinth. Elias took a cautious step, the pulse of the valley pressing against his chest. Every instinct screamed that failure would mean more than death. It would mean being absorbed, lost to the valley forever. Yet amid the fear, a spark of resolve ignited. If this place wanted to study them, they would resist. Not with guns alone, but with every shred of awareness, courage, and cunning they had left. The mist shifted as though acknowledging the decision, and the first faint rays of sunlight illuminated the valley like a cathedral of shadows, vast and unknowable. Elias exhaled slowly, gripping his rifle tighter. They had entered not a battlefield, but a trial, and only by learning its patterns could they hope to survive. The valley watched, patient and calculating, and the soldiers realized the truth. It was not death that waited, it was understanding. The valley didn't attack directly. Elias Vance crouched behind a fallen log, his breath shallow, his senses taut, every nerve straining for movement that didn't exist. The gunfire had stopped, leaving only the oppressive silence that pressed against his skull like iron. Renner muttered under his breath as he reloaded, hands trembling despite his bravado. Hale's eyes scanned the dense undergrowth, following shadows that bent unnaturally, as if reality itself were tilting. Captain Solis crouched nearby, voice low but steady. Listen. We are not being hunted. We are being guided. Elias frowned, unsure whether she meant it figuratively, but as the jungle seemed to shift around them, he realized she meant it literally. Every step, every rustle, every movement was orchestrated by something unseen, something aware. The creek they followed twisted unnaturally, leading them into deeper shadows where the mist thickened, curling over roots and rocks as if alive. Elias felt a pressure in his chest, rhythmic and deliberate, synchronized with his heartbeat, and he understood in that instant that the valley was conscious, observing, testing. Renner's eyes darted toward a flicker of reflection among the trees, moving impulsively, almost vanishing into the foliage. A scream cut through the mist, short and piercing. Ilias' heart lurched as he realized another soldier had been taken. No attacker, no trace, just gone. Hale's hand gripped his shoulder, grounding him. It's not about fighting yet. It's about surviving until we understand. Ilias nodded, tightening his grip on his rifle, every sense alert. The shadows pulsed as if breathing, subtle movements guiding their path. The first humanoid figure appeared briefly, vanishing when focused on, leaving behind a faint glow in its eyes, intelligent, assessing, not attacking. Solis signaled caution, leading the squad along the creek, every footstep deliberate, knowing the valley's observation was constant, every choice scrutinized. Ilias realized with a chill that this wasn't combat, it was a trial. The valley absorbed their fear, their hesitation, their instinct, shaping it into a test they had no manual for. Each rustle of leaves, each flicker of light, every unnatural shadow was a message. And the message was simple: survive long enough to learn or vanish without trace. Hale's voice broke the tense silence. We cannot fight conventionally. We adapt or we die. Ilias exhaled, sensing a spark of grim determination. If the valley wanted to study them, they would resist with awareness, intuition, and courage sharpened by terror. A faint light flickered ahead, marking a path through the dense mist, almost welcoming them. Ilias swallowed, gripping his rifle as the squad advanced cautiously. The valley pressed against their minds, patient, calculating, waiting to see which would falter first. Every step forward was a negotiation, every shadow a threat. The valley was alive, it was aware, and it was learning. The deeper they moved, the heavier the air became, as if the valley itself pressed against their lungs. Ilias could feel it now, the rhythm beneath his skin, the pulse in the soil, the subtle vibration in the mist curling around the trees. Every step they took seemed anticipated, every breath measured. The squad followed the creek, silent except for the occasional snap of a twig beneath a boot, yet the valley responded, shadows flickering at the edge of vision, mist parting and curling in ways that felt deliberate. Hale's eyes never left the tree line, tracking movements Ilias could barely detect, and Renner flinched at every sound, though nothing approached. Then came the whispers, faint and fragmented, like voices carried by wind but unmistakably deliberate, echoing in the corners of their minds. Ilias froze, gripping his rifle tighter, trying to distinguish reality from perception. The whispers didn't form words, not yet, but their meaning was unmistakable. Move, watch. Survive. Captain Solis raised a hand, signaling the squad to halt. Even she seemed unsettled, aware that the valley's intelligence was no longer just watching. They were communicating. Ilias felt the pulse intensify, a rhythmic vibration that aligned with the whispers, resonating through the mist and into his chest, like the jungle itself was speaking through him. Shadows lengthened and bent unnaturally, converging and retreating in patterns that suggested intelligence. Ilias understood instinctively. The valley wasn't attacking, it was studying. It tested reactions, patience, fear, cohesion. One misstep, one hesitation, one thoughtless movement, and it would punish them. Not with direct violence, but with disappearance, with absorption into the living landscape. The creek widened, forming a small pool where the mist was thickest. Ilias crouched low, feeling eyes upon them though no one was visible. Renner whispered, I swear I saw something in the water. Hale shook his head, calm yet tense. It's not what you see, it's what you feel. The valley is aware. It isn't bound by sight, it calculates, predicts, manipulates. Ilias swallowed hard, the chill crawling up his spine as the whispers grew slightly louder, more coherent, threading through his thoughts. They weren't malicious, they were neutral, observant, but that made them more terrifying. Captain Solis motioned forward and the squad advanced cautiously, each step deliberate, each movement weighed. The valley shifted in response. Shadows coalescing into humanoid silhouettes, vanishing when focused upon. Mist forming vague corridors, guiding or misleading. Faint glimmers of light pulsing rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Ilias sensed an invisible current beneath the soil, a movement beneath roots and stone, as if the valley's mind extended deep into the earth itself. They rounded a bend, and the mist thickened into a wall. Beyond it, shapes moved just out of clarity, whispering their presence without revealing form. Solis stopped, hand raised again. We are in the core observation zone. Expect the unexpected. Trust your instincts, but remember. The valley is learning as we move. Ilias' heart pounded as a figure flickered briefly in the corner of his vision. Tall, humanoid, impossible, observing them with intelligence that made his blood run cold. It didn't move aggressively, didn't attack. It simply evaluated. Ilias realized that survival no longer depended on strength or strategy alone. It depended on perception, intuition, and restraint. The valley's presence was everywhere, embedding itself in their minds, guiding them, waiting to see who would falter first. Hale whispered almost to himself, we are its lesson. Every reaction, every choice, it's all data. Elias nodded slowly, understanding the truth in a visceral way. To survive, they could not fight what they could not see. They could only endure, adapt, and learn faster than the valley learned from them. And in that realization, fear sharpened into determination. They would not vanish without a trace, not today. The jungle seemed to close in around them as the squad pressed deeper into the valley. Every step was heavier, every breath more difficult, as if the mist had weight and the trees exhaled pressure. Elias Vance's senses were on edge, every rustle, every faint shadow, a possible threat or trap. Hale led cautiously, scanning the surroundings with eyes that missed nothing, while Renner muttered under his breath, checking his rifle for the third time despite the lack of visible targets. Captain Solis moved deliberately at the front, signaling pauses, guiding them toward a narrow passage where the mist thickened, funneling them into a corridor of ancient, twisted trees that arched above like cathedral ribs. Elias felt the pulse stronger here, vibrating through the ground into his boots, into his spine, a subtle rhythm that aligned with the whispers still threading through their minds. They were approaching the core, though none of them knew exactly what that meant. Every instinct screamed that this was the epicenter of the valley's intelligence, the heart of its observation. Suddenly, the undergrowth shifted in unnatural patterns, branches bending to form a crude archway, shadows twisting as if alive. A faint glow emanated from within, diffused and pulsing in time with the valley's silent rhythm. Elias froze, every hair on his body standing, feeling eyes where none existed. "Do you feel it?" Renner whispered. Hale's jaw tightened. "It's aware of us as we are aware of it." "Step carefully." The squad advanced, boots silent on moss and damp soil. Shapes flickered at the edge of vision, humanoid but impossible, vanishing when focused on, leaving behind only the faintest imprint of presence. Solis signaled another halt. "This is the observation zone," she said quietly, voice almost drowned by the thick mist. "Do not provoke it. We move slowly, deliberately, or we risk being absorbed." Elias realized the valley didn't need to attack to harm them. It could manipulate, redirect, isolate, break cohesion without a single shot fired. Every rustle, every distorted shadow, every glimmer of light was a calculated test. A sudden shift in pressure made Elias drop instinctively, rifle raised. The air felt alive, bending around him, guiding him to a narrow path leading upward. Hale nodded silently. "The path wants us here. Follow, but don't trust it completely." They moved in single file, the mist clinging to their faces like wet silk. Whispers wound tighter, almost forming words now, fragmented commands or warnings, threading into the corners of consciousness. The glow intensified ahead, revealing the rough outlines of structures half buried in the jungle, ancient and alien, like remnants of a civilization lost to time. Elias' heart pounded. This was what the valley had been guiding them toward. They reached a small clearing at the center, and the pulse beneath the soil was unmistakable, stronger, deliberate, focused. The valley's presence enveloped them fully, pressing into their minds without force, testing, observing, learning. A figure appeared in the mist ahead, taller and more defined than before, humanoid yet impossibly proportioned, eyes glowing faintly. It didn't move aggressively, it simply regarded them. Elias swallowed, understanding immediately that the figure was both sentinel and teacher, a conduit of the valley's will. Hale exhaled slowly, whispering, "This is the core. We are being evaluated." Elias nodded, his fingers tightening on his rifle, not in aggression but readiness. The valley didn't just want to see them survive. It wanted to see how they adapted, how they reacted, how they thought. Every instinct, every decision, every heartbeat was a data point. Solis stepped forward slightly, careful, deliberate, her eyes never leaving the glowing figure. "We do not fight it," she said quietly. "We endure it." The squad followed her lead, moving cautiously toward the structure, aware that the valley's observation was absolute, patient, relentless. Elias felt a chill as he realized the depth of the trial before them. Failure would not mean death. It would mean erasure, becoming part of the valley itself. Yet, amid fear, a spark of determination ignited. They would learn faster, think faster, survive longer. The core waited, pulsing in the mist, and the valley whispered again, guiding them, probing them, testing them in a game they could not yet fully understand. The deeper they advanced into the heart of the valley, the heavier the air became, almost viscous, pressing against lungs and skull alike. Elias Vance felt every step as though it carried the weight of the unseen intelligence watching them, shaping their path with imperceptible nudges. The squad moved in tight formation, Hale at the front scanning the dense undergrowth, every shadow a potential observation point, every movement a potential trigger. Renner whispered nervously behind him, the tension in his hands betraying the bravado he tried to project. Captain Solis's voice cut through the thick silence. "Stay alert. Nothing here is as it seems." Elias could feel it. The valley was alive in a way that defied logic. The mist shifted around them, curling and thickening, carrying faint murmurs, almost intelligible, threading into their minds. Every sound, every reflection, every flicker of shadow seemed deliberate, as if the air itself carried intelligence. A sudden rustle of leaves, faint and deliberate, drew their attention. Elias froze. The shadows elongated unnaturally, forming shapes that were vaguely humanoid but impossibly tall, impossible in proportion. They didn't advance. They didn't retreat. They observed, studying the squad's every reaction. Hale motioned them forward cautiously, each step deliberate, synchronized with the rhythm of the unseen pulse beneath the soil. The whispers intensified, subtle commands threading through consciousness. Move carefully, hesitate not, react instinctively. Elias realized with a chill that hesitation itself could be punished. They reached a narrow corridor of trees, ancient and twisted, roots twisting like veins over the earth. The mist parted to reveal another figure, taller, more defined, eyes glowing faintly. It didn't attack, didn't speak. It simply waited, its gaze penetrating, calculating, absorbing every nuance of fear, hesitation, courage. Solis exhaled, whispering, "It's not hostile, not yet, but it tests us." Elias' hands gripped the rifle tighter. The valley was no longer just terrain. It was a sentient threat, invisible but omnipresent, manipulating perception, forcing decisions, learning from every heartbeat, every blink, every instinct. Renner flinched at a whisper that seemed to echo from nowhere, his pulse visible even in the dim mist. Hale's eyes narrowed. "We can't fight it conventionally. We adapt, or we vanish." The squad moved cautiously, following Solis' lead, each step a negotiation with unseen forces, each glance a measure of what was real and what was perception. The corridor opened into a small clearing, mist rolling along the ground like smoke. The pulse beneath their feet intensified, resonating through every bone, every nerve, as if the valley itself were breathing. A faint glow emanated from the far side of the clearing, revealing structures partially hidden in the mist, alien and ancient, intertwined with the trees and roots. Elias swallowed hard. This was the center, the core of the valley's sentience. The figure reappeared at the edge of the mist, glowing eyes fixed on them, observing, assessing. Solis stepped forward slightly, signaling the squad to follow but to remain still, deliberate. "We endure," she whispered. "We do not provoke." Elias felt the valley's awareness pressing into him, learning, judging. Every instinct, every reaction, every thought recorded in silence. They were no longer intruders. They were participants in a trial, and the valley was the judge. Elias' heartbeat quickened as a chill ran down his spine. The valley's pulse, the whispers threading into their minds, the shifting shadows, all demanded precision, awareness, adaptability. A single misstep could erase them, absorb them, leave no trace. Yet determination flared in Elias' chest. They would not vanish. They would endure. They would survive this test, not with brute force, but with awareness, with instinct, with courage sharpened to a fine edge. The valley watched, the valley waited. The trial had only just begun. The valley pressed closer with every step, its sentience weaving through the mist, wrapping around their minds like a slow, inevitable tide. Elias Vance felt it not just around them, but inside him, probing instinct, testing patience, observing hesitation. Hale led, eyes sharp, each motion deliberate, muscles coiled, every breath measured. Renner stumbled slightly on a root and froze, staring at a shadow that flickered too deliberately to be natural. Captain Solis signaled them to halt, hand raised, eyes scanning the unnatural stillness. "Trust your instincts, but question what you feel," she whispered. Elias' pulse accelerated. He could hear his own heartbeat echoing in the valley, aligning almost with the rhythm beneath the soil. The whispers returned, more distinct now, threading into thought, shaping perception, guiding decisions. Not commands, but suggestions. The valley tested reflexes, patience, courage. A faint rustle drew their eyes to the left, nothing visible, but the ground shifted subtly beneath their feet. Hale's voice was quiet, controlled. "Don't reach for weapons unless necessary. Awareness is the key." Elias tightened his grip, senses sharpened beyond training, noticing minute changes. A leaf trembling without wind, shadows elongating and contracting like living veins, mist pulsing with an almost heartbeat-like rhythm. The squad advanced slowly, single file, moving with precision dictated by instinct honed under pressure. They reached another clearing, smaller, enclosed by twisted roots and thick mist that hung like smoke. The glow from the central core illuminated the edges, and Elias glimpsed a humanoid figure flicker at the periphery, taller than any human, glowing faintly, watching, calculating. It made no sound, yet its presence resonated like a pressure in the chest, a weight on thought itself. Solis stepped forward, leading, careful not to draw aggression, not that it seemed necessary. The valley didn't strike. It studied, learned, evaluated. Elias felt something stir deep within himself, a primal instinct he didn't know he possessed. The whispers seemed to merge with his heartbeat, sharpening awareness, connecting him to the pulse beneath the soil, the rhythm of the mist, the subtle shifts in shadow. He realized survival here would demand more than courage. It would demand harmony with the environment, intuition attuned to the valley's sentience. Renner moved closer, whispering, "I feel like it knows us better than we know ourselves." Hale's gaze hardened. "Then we use that knowledge. We adapt faster than it predicts." Ilias exhaled slowly, chest tight but mind alert. They had entered the core not to fight, not to conquer, but to endure, to survive, to understand. Each rustle of leaf, each flicker of light, each pulse beneath their feet was data, a test. Failure meant absorption into the valley, erasure without trace. Yet amid the pressure, the fear, a sharp clarity arose. Adapt, anticipate, endure. Ilias felt the instinct flare brighter, a hidden resolve awakening within, connecting perception with action, thought with reaction, fear with determination. Hale nodded slightly, acknowledging the change, the silent readiness that spread through the squad. The valley watched, patient, calculating, invisible yet omnipresent. And for the first time, Ilias felt a measure of confidence. Not defiance, not aggression, but awareness. The only true weapon they had against a sentient, unrelenting force. They stepped deeper into the mist, every movement a negotiation, every breath a test, the core glowing faintly ahead, alive, observing, and the valley's rhythm pulsing in their bones. Survival had become instinct. Awareness had become strategy. And the trial, silent yet absolute, had only begun to reveal its rules. The pulse beneath their feet grew stronger, almost insistent, as if the valley itself had acknowledged their presence in full. Ilias Vance could feel it vibrating through his boots, up his spine, threading into every nerve, guiding perception and reaction. The squad moved cautiously, each step deliberate, every glance measured, aware that hesitation could be fatal. Hale led, senses sharp, predicting the subtle shifts in mist and shadow. Renner flinched at every flicker, every rustle, whispering, "It's like it knows what we're thinking." Ilias didn't reply. He only focused, letting instinct, honed under pressure, guide him through the dense undergrowth. Captain Solis signaled a halt at the edge of a clearing where the glow from the core intensified, illuminating the twisted structures entwined with roots and mist. Shapes flickered at the periphery, humanoid yet impossibly proportioned, watching, evaluating, but still not attacking. The valley was patient. Observation was its weapon. Hale whispered, "It's testing us." Every reaction, every micro-movement, it's learning. Ilias felt a chill as awareness sharpened. This wasn't just survival, it was adaptation under scrutiny. The mist thickened suddenly, forming almost tangible walls, guiding them toward the center, toward the glowing pulse of the valley's core. Whispers threaded through their consciousness, no longer fragmented, almost words now, urging, warning, shaping thought. Ilias realized the valley's intelligence extended beyond sight or sound. It probed instinct, intuition, hesitation. They had been pawns in its trial, and now the trial escalated. A sudden flash of movement made Ilias drop instinctively. A figure appeared in the mist, glowing faintly, humanoid, observing, calculating. It moved in ways that defied physical logic, bending shadows, disappearing and reappearing, guiding their path silently. Solis gestured forward, voice low. "We endure, we do not provoke. Move with awareness, let instinct lead." Ilias' pulse raced, but a strange clarity emerged. Fear still existed, but it had sharpened focus, forged determination. Every subtle shift in shadow, every flicker in the mist, every vibration underfoot became a signal, a guide. Renner whispered, voice trembling, "It's like it's showing us something." Hale's eyes narrowed. "Or testing whether we can see it." Ilias exhaled slowly, gripping his rifle not to attack, but to anchor himself, to maintain connection with reality in a place where perception itself was manipulated. The clearing opened toward the glowing core, structures half-buried, alien, ancient, pulsing with the same rhythm as the soil beneath them. The figure appeared again, closer now, eyes observing, calculating, and Ilias felt the valley's presence press on his mind with quiet insistence. It was a challenge, a puzzle, a threat beyond physical form. Every step toward the core was both progress and peril. Hale whispered, "We adapt or we disappear. There is no other path." Ilias felt a spark of determination flare, instinct merging with intellect, fear sharpening awareness, courage becoming strategy. The valley watched, patient and absolute. And in that moment, as the mist swirled and the glowing structures loomed ahead, Ilias realized they had reached the turning point. Survival depended not on force, but on perception, adaptability, and the ability to act in harmony with the rhythm of a sentient landscape that measured everything, punished hesitation, and rewarded insight. The core of the valley loomed before them, glowing faintly through thick mist, structures twisted and alien, roots entwined like veins around ancient stone. Ilias Vance could feel the pulse beneath his feet, stronger than ever, resonating through every bone, threading into his mind. The squad moved in single file, silent, aware that hesitation could erase them. Hale led, eyes scanning the edges of perception, muscles coiled, senses sharpened to the extreme. Renner stumbled but caught himself, whispering, "It's alive." Elias didn't reply, he felt it already. The valley's sentience pressing on him, probing, testing, learning. Captain Solis signaled forward, every motion deliberate. "Stay with me. Every step counts. Observe, adapt, endure." The mist parted, revealing a narrow path to the heart of the glowing core. Shadows shifted unnaturally, forming humanoid figures at the periphery, observing, evaluating, yet never attacking. Elias understood with a chill. They were still under observation, every heartbeat, every thought catalogued. The whispers threaded through their consciousness, now coherent, almost guidance, urging caution, patience, awareness. The pulse intensified, almost like a heartbeat syncing with their own. Elias felt fear flare, but alongside it clarity, instinct merging with perception. The figure appeared ahead, glowing eyes fixed, posture impossible, yet somehow humanoid. Solis' voice was quiet but resolute. "Endure, do not falter." Elias' hands gripped his rifle, not to attack, but to anchor himself. The valley was not a foe to fight. It was a test to survive, to adapt, to learn faster than it could learn from them. Each step toward the core carried weight, the mist curling like fingers pressing, observing. The glow revealed intricate patterns in the stone and roots, almost like circuitry, alive, intelligent, pulsing with rhythm that matched the whispers threading through their minds. Elias felt his instincts sharpen, subtle signals aligning with movement in shadows and vibrations beneath the soil. The valley was teaching. Every hesitation, every misstep would erase them. Every observation, every calm, deliberate action allowed them to endure. Hale nodded slightly at Elias, recognition passing without words. They had adapted. Renner's trembling lessened as awareness replaced fear, every motion measured. The glowing figure shifted slightly, then retreated into mist, leaving only the pulse, the rhythm, the sense of observation unbroken. Solis exhaled, signaling the squad to advance, each footstep synchronized with the rhythm beneath their feet. They reached the heart of the core, an open space where mist swirled, roots intertwined with glowing stone, ancient yet alive, pulsating in resonance with the valley itself. Elias felt it, the valley's sentience now not probing, but acknowledging, recognizing their adaptation, their endurance. Every whisper, every subtle signal, every instinct honed had been observed, measured, respected. They had survived the trial. The mist began to thin, the shadows receding slightly, the pulse softening, as if the valley was granting reprieve, acknowledging understanding. Elias exhaled slowly, chest tight but mind alert. The valley did not grant victory in the conventional sense, but they had endured, adapted, survived. Hale gave a subtle nod, the first sign of relief in hours. Solis' eyes reflected cautious triumph. "We've passed it for now." Elias looked around, seeing the shadows dissipate, the pulse fade, realizing they were no longer merely intruders. They were participants, students of a sentient landscape, forever marked by the trial. The mist lifted, the core's glow dimmed to a steady luminescence, and the valley seemed almost serene, patient, waiting for the next challenge. Elias felt a strange kinship with the place, fear replaced by understanding. They had survived not by fire or steel, but by awareness, instinct, and unity. The valley had taught its lesson, and they had endured. They emerged from the core into a lighter mist, sunlight piercing the canopy, shadows still flickering but no longer threatening. Elias exhaled, feeling the valley's pulse fade into memory, its intelligence still present but distant, patient, waiting. Captain Solis motioned to move, the squad following, stronger, wiser, forever changed. And as they departed the heart of the valley, Elias realized the truth. Survival was not about defeating the valley, but about understanding, adapting, and enduring when nothing else could be trusted. The valley watched them leave, patient, aware, sentient, and the whispers faded into the wind, leaving only the memory of the trial and the knowledge that it would continue, ever patient, ever vigilant, waiting for the next lesson to unfold.